Hi, it's Miss Lisa from the St. Paris Public Library. Welcome back to Just Before Bed, our chapter book reading series for the summer. I hope that you enjoyed last week's story, Pippi Longstocking. She's crazy. So this week we are going to be reading a book called Of a Feather. The author of this book is Dana Lorenz. And we're going to get started and read a couple chapters tonight and see how the book goes. All right, here we go. Chapter 1, Reenie. I can always fake a smile, always except tonight. My face just won't cooperate. For sure, tonight wasn't great. Graham's mean boyfriend, Phil, let his usual simmering stew of anger boil over. He and Graham were yelling loud enough to keep me awake. Loud enough to wake the neighbors, too, because one of them made a big deal of everything, called the police just as Phil started throwing plates as punctuation. Now the social worker's lost trying to drive me to some stranger's house. Her car smells like feet. I have mud on my pajamas, and I cannot make my mouth bend into a smile. The car swerves hard onto a side road, and the wheels bump as the road turns from pavement to dirt. I lean forward, pressing my chest to the seat belt to get into the social worker's peripheral vision. Should we maybe go back to my Graham's house? I say in my nicest kid trying to help voice. It's the one that works best on adults in these kinds of situations. The social worker yawns, gulps a swig of coffee from her thermos and smiles sleepily. We'll find it. She looks back at the road. I think her name is Randy. Yes, Randy with an I. I pull my backpack onto my lap, reach inside, and wrap a matted fluff of the marabou string Mom gave me tight around my fingers. Ah, Randy stops the car in front of the driveway of a ramshackle farmhouse built too close to the curb. Here we are, she says with forced cheer. The headlights pick out shadows along the house's patchy and peeling white paint. The curtains are drawn across the bay window, and no light shines by the green front door. Who lives here again, I ask? I've never been here before. Randy, with an I, has to look at her folder. Your great-aunt, your grandmother's sister. I don't think Graham had a sister. She flips pages. Your father's mother, her sister. That explains why I don't know her. I unwrap my fingers, tuck the marabou away. Okay. Randy squeezes my knee. This isn't the end of things, Reenie. Maureen. Right, Maureen. Sorry. She glances at the folder. It's another step in the path, that's all. I pull the handle and pop open the door. Sure. There isn't much ceremony in my transfer of custody. The social worker gives the alleged aunt the thick folder and some paperwork. I can guess what the folder has in it. The whole story of me and Mom, how I've been living with my Gram all summer ever since Mom's sadness got so big. It pushed everything else out of her. It's not the first time this has happened, so we all knew what to do. Gram got Mom admitted to the psychiatric ward at the hospital, and I camped on the futon in Gram's junk room. Why'd Phil have to mess everything up? Why'd the neighbor have to be such a light sleeper? The alleged aunt signs some papers, hands them to Randy, with an I, keeps others. In less than 10 minutes, Randy's back on the road, and I'm standing on the warped wood floor of the wide foyer of a potentially falling down house with a total stranger who's supposed to be my replacement parent. I'm Beatrice, the alleged aunt says. Beatrice Prince. She's tall and old. You can call me Beatrice. She's got long gray hair strapped down in a braid that straggles poking out. She's wearing men's flannel pants and a t-shirt so faded I can't make out the words, only the letters R and T in a few places. You're Will's kid, she says after a minute of me saying nothing. I guess. My dad had never been around. She gives me the up and down with her eyes. You look like him. I've seen pictures. She considers me for a moment more, then says, Huh? She turns and walks towards the back of the house. Come on, she says, beckoning from halfway down the hall. Clearly Randy woke her from a deep sleep. I follow her. The floorboards groan and shift beneath my sneakers. The foyer narrows to a hall alongside the stairs, then opens into a kitchen. There are jars and bowls everywhere. A breeze slithers in through the open window, carrying a stink that's wild and musky and rank. "What's that smell?" I ask, pulling my t-shirt over my nose for emphasis. "I keep birds," she says, stopping beside the counter, taking a sip of water from a mason jar. "This is the kitchen. You can eat whatever you want. That over there is the living room." She points to the room next to the kitchen. "I don't have a TV." She says this as if daring me to complain about the fact. "There's a dining room, but I don't use it for dining." "What do you use it for?" "My birds." She walks towards me, back to the front of the house. We stand there facing each other in the narrow hall. I don't feel like moving. She raises her hand, pointing behind me. "I'll show you your room." When I still don't move, she squeezes around me, then turns and heads upstairs. I follow her up the steps to a landing. Right leads to her room on the back of the house. Left leads to my room at the front of the house. Between them is the one bathroom in the house. "The blue towels are yours," she says. "I also found an extra toothbrush and hairbrush." I wasn't sure. She stopped mid-sentence, scratched her scalp near the base of her braid. "I'm sorry about your mom going to the hospital. I didn't know." My fingers claw the canvas of my backpack. "It's been 2 months," I say. "I'm over it." The alleged aunt takes a moment, then nods. "I'll leave you to get yourself to bed." I must look unusually awful for the aunt to feel the need to start with the "I'm sorry about your mom" stuff, so I poked my head into the bathroom. It's clean enough, with a pedestal sink, a rickety-looking shelf over the john, and a claw-footed tub with a white curtain hanging from a circular bar above it. The window looks down the road, back south where I came from. There's a mirror over the sink. My brown hair is a snarl on top of my head. There are circles under my brown eyes and the whites are bloodshot, some of those signs adults like to point to when identifying the troubled kids. I splash a handful of water on my face, dry off with one of the blue towels, crack open the new toothbrush, and brush my teeth. The toothpaste tastes too minty, but too minty is maybe a good thing. At Gran's house, there was only one bathroom and 4 adults. Graham, Phil, Mom's brother Tony, and his girlfriend Lisa, plus me, so I didn't have a lot of chances to brush my teeth. Not that that was a big deal. I mean, I didn't even have school. But your mouth begins to feel fuzzy after a while. Here, there's a little metal stand for the toothbrush. I drop mine in, and it jingles. It doesn't have to act so happy. Back in the hall, I approach the door identified as my room. My room is huge. The walls are yellow, not my color, but whatever. And there's a round rag rug made of all different colored strips in the center of the floor. On one side is a desk with a chair. On the other, a big old bed with a quilt and 2 pillows. The closet is a cavern of empty hangers. I open my backpack and take out my 2 t-shirts. I hang them. They spin listlessly in the vast space. I hang my jean shorts, my 4 clean socks, and 3 pairs of underwear on the remaining hangers. I unzip the hoodie I'm wearing and hang it too. The closet still looks empty. The clothes drift around like they're looking for someone. My backpack lies on the floor, split open like a skin. The marabou hangs out over the zipper. Mom splurged on it one night as we checked out of the Dollar General. We went home and had a karaoke party, taking turns wearing the marabou string as a boa, dancing and belting out Taylor Swift until the neighbors banged on the wall for us to stop. That familiar buzz crackles up from my belly button and prickles the inside of my ears. Words fizz out of it: afraid, stranger, alone. The buzz careens around inside of my skull, and the words flash like lightning, and my fingers start to tingle, and I can barely keep the tears from trickling out, but I do. I take a deep breath, suck it all back in, squeeze the buzz down into a belly rumble. Lock all those words up tight. Good night, I hear from the hall. The strip of light beneath my door goes dark. I could say something back, but I don't. The floorboards squeak under my feet as I cross the room. There's a night table next to the bed. The shallow drawer has a nub of a pencil in it, some old hairbands, and a wrinkled paperback book, My Side of the Mountain. I'm in someone else's room, or what was someone else's room? So many questions, but I have to wait until the alleged aunt is asleep to begin a proper investigation. I mean, she got a whole file on me. It's only fair. I dig out the paperback. It's about a kid who runs away in the middle of nowhere because his house is too crowded. I hate it when books make it seem like kids have a choice about this stuff. It's like, where's this guy Randy with an eye? But whatever, the story keeps me awake. Finally, the grumble of a snore rattles across the hall. It's time to go. Creeping downstairs, carefully not to squeak any floorboards, I first head for the bird room. I'm hoping for a menagerie, but no, it's just a mostly empty room with shutters over the windows. What do these birds do in here? Boring. I sneak into the living room. There are bookshelves and then more books stacked like end tables next to the couch and the overstuffed chair which huddles around the wood stove. I flip through a few, but mostly mysteries with gray-haired ladies surrounded by doilies on the covers. Headlights from a passing car scan over the room, catching me like a thief in the act. I freeze. They pass. I search on. In a second bookcase near the front window, I hit the jackpot, a photo album. There's a wedding photo. The alleged aunt was married. The guy looks nice enough. Here's them hiking. Here they are in a canoe. Here's them with a baby, a little girl. A postcard from the girl. Dear Mom, Dad's new house is nice. Mindy is nice too. I miss you. Love, Ava. It was mailed from St. Louis 10 years ago. So, I'm in Ava's, the kid's room. The aunt's divorced. The kid lives with her dad. Did she have a choice? Is this a clue or just what happened? A stair creaks. I shove the postcard back into the album and the album back into the bookcase and scramble towards the kitchen. Maureen? Beatrice asked, flipping on the hall light. I just wanted a glass of water, I say, grabbing a glass out of the cabinet. She steps into the kitchen and turns on the overhead light. It's your house now, too. I fill the glass, take a sip. Maureen, she begins. I'm not your mom, but No, I say, interrupting. You're not. And I'm not her replacement kid. I put the empty glass in the sink and walk past her. Good night, she says as I tromp upstairs. I shut myself in my room. She stays in the kitchen, washing the glass for a good 10 minutes after. Chapter 2. Rufus. I suck the cool air in through my beak, smoothing my chest feathers. I align my facial disc, twitching each tiny feather, coaxing the night sounds towards my ears. Silence blooms into patterns of noise. The wind in the branches, the sharp scratch of a late summer leaf against its neighbor, the prickling of tall, dry grass in a nearby field. Bugs thump and chitter beside the dead bark of the neighboring trunk. Heartbeats dance in the darkness. I'm going for it. I lift my wings, spread them wide, and drop silently off the branch. I think there's a vole just there, maybe. Yes, a vole. Or a volish creature somewhere in that pile of grass. I glide towards it, bob my head, tried to lock on to the heartbeat. Where was it? Which tussock? Now I'm too low. I flap. Something skitters near the tree. Mine. I swerve, stretch my talons, crash down into the grass like a stone, and nothing. I've got a foot full of straw. Forget it, I say, and flap back to the branch. We've been at this all night, have flown far from the nest to a strange part of the woods, and every single hunting strategy I've come up with has failed. I hunch my head down between my wings and fluff my feathers, laying my ear tufts flat back. Second, Mother peeps softly, quitting is not an option. I burrow my head deeper into my shoulders. I know she's right, but it's not my fault. I'm doing everything she says. My ears are broken, I squeak. She hoots softly. Second. Even my name is an insult. Second egg to hatch, forever destined to be behind. Mother nips my feathers and steps closer to on the branch. It takes time to learn how to hear the world. First got it on her first night. First was a week older. First fledged 3 weeks ago. Tonight, Father flapped away to hunt on his own. Mother stayed, but for how long? She clacked her beak at me. Enough of this feeling fluffed. You're a great horned owl, master of the night forest. You own the darkness, and you will catch that mouse, so help me. She tromps down the branch, opens her wings, and disappears into the shadows. It was a mouse, and I was so sure it was a vole. An entire moon's worth of studying, and I still can't tell a mouse from a vole. I clack my beak back at her. It's not as if I want to be a bum owl, the only owl in history of owldom who can't find food in the dark. Far off, I saw whit-too-toos. Even that tiny bug of an owl is having a better luck hunting. I have to stop feeling sorry for myself. I'm a great horned owl, master of the night, master. I bob my head up and down, turn it, bob again, do a full circle, and beginning to feel dizzy, but I still can't pinpoint where in the grass around the bottom of the tree the mouse is rustling. I go for it anyway. I swoop, glide on a warm current of air, then drop, talons out, wings folded. Gah! Leaves! Nothing but dead leaves. They're too fast, I screech, flapping up from the dust. I need some slower food to hunt. But then a better plan hatches in my mind. We could hunt as a team. Why does hunting have to be a solo effort? Who says owls have to live alone? Mother, I have a new plan. Let's hunt as a team, in a pack like coyotes. Maybe you catch something and then leave it for me to finish off. You know, maybe only half kill it or stun it a little. What about that plan? I land on a branch. Mother, I twist my head around first one way, then the other. Her silhouette must be hidden in a shadow. Or she left me. She wouldn't have left me. Would she? Mother? Fear grips my beak and my hoot comes out as a warbled squeak. Something coos from a nearby tree. Not something. Mother. Mother is perched, a swoop or two away, near a space in the woods. I can almost feel her frustration from here. She's cooing softly because she doesn't trust me to hear her heartbeat or my own. My feathers begin to fluff. I didn't hear her. I couldn't because I'm broken. My ears are full of down and I'm never going to catch a meal ever. And calm second, Mother coos. But she doesn't fly to me. She doesn't hoot anything more. She thinks I can do this. No, I can do this. I breathe in the cool air again. Let it calm my frustration and anger building in my gizzard. My feathers smooth, realign. The noise map of the darkness flickers back to life. Mother has stopped cooing. She believes I can find her. She believes I can survive. I stretch my wings down and back, prepare for flight. But there's a new noise, a rumbling, coming closer, fast. Mother hears it, but she has to. But instead of waiting to see what it is, she dives from her branch into the clearing in the trees. Second, she screeches, I caught 2 mice. They were just out in the open eating an apple core. 2 mice? We haven't eaten yet today. Mother's been trying to use my hunger to as motivation and won't let herself eat until I catch a meal. But 2 mice out in the open? That's too good to pass up, no matter if it ruins a night's worth of educational starvation. I open my wings to swoop down to her, but blinding light blazes over the crest of the small hill. The low rumble I hear is now a deafening roar. I screech, Mother! I see her lit in the brilliant light, wings out, ready to fly away. But the rumbling monster is faster than even her. There's a thump and a snap of bones breaking. Mother screeches. What's happening? I squeak. The rumbling monster squeals. stops. Its side flaps open like a stumpy wing, and a smaller creature, long-armed and legged and thin like a young tree, comes tumbling from its belly. The lank creature clicks on a small light, yelps, and tries to pick up Mother. Mother flaps, but one wing lies still. She stumbles, escapes the lanky creature's grasp. Talons seize the bark. "Fly away," she screeches. "Save yourself." "No!" The lanky creature throws a thick skin over Mother, muffles her cries. The creature picks her up inside the skin, carries her back to the back of the huge hollow monster, lifts its tail, and places Mother in its belly. The lanky creature then scrambles to the open wing, climbs into the belly of the beast, closes the wing, and rumbles on faster now than before. Can you tell by the words that they use that that was a car? "Mother," I shriek, regaining my voice. I fly after her, blindly flapping through the leaves and sticks. "Mother!" The beast is too fast for me. It kicks up dust, blinding me, filling my lungs. I cough and sputter. It races away towards bright lights. Mother told me to never go near those lights. I collapse onto a branch. I clack my beak and pant, flap my wings to free myself of the monster's dirt. Mother's been eaten. My heart pounds, drowning out all the other noises in the night. She's gone. The wind rushes through my feathers, reaching my skin. I shiver. I'm alone outside the nest for the first time. Alone in a strange forest. I creep along the branch until I hit the tree's trunk. I huddle down inside my feathers, which are all out of place after crashing through the brush. What does it matter? Father warned of predators, other owls, eagles, hawks, coyotes, even skunks. But he never described anything like that monster, and now I'm left alone in the forest. Alone, alone, alone. "Alone!" a coyote cries. The cold moon glares down. Shadows crawl. The darkness crackles with things on the hunt, with monsters, hungry monsters. "Oh, Mother," I chirp. But Mother is gone. I close my eyes tight, shut my ears to the noise. Maybe if I keep perfectly still, maybe if I turn into nothing more than another patch of darkness, into nothing at all the evils of the night will slither by me. Maybe then I'll be safe. I creep back, stretch my fingers, and touch the soft feathers. It's like she's made of cloud. It's almost passage bird season, Beatrice says. I'm planning on catching a passage redtail. I'm going to need help feeding the birds and cleaning the mews. The what? These aviaries, she points to the sheds. They're called mews. I hope to catch a hawk, and I could use your help taking care of it, if you want to help. I look at this beautiful bird. She's trapped here? Beatrice shakes her head, relaxes her shoulders. Red's an imprinted bird. I bought her as a chick from a breeder for the falconry school. She's never lived in the wild, never could either. She swings her arms and Red soars away into the top of a tall pine. I do plan to catch a wild bird using a trap, but even that I don't think of as trapping. The world is a tough place for a hawk. Humans have encroached on their forests with power lines and rat poison, and nature herself was never easy on birds of prey. Most first-year birds won't make it through the winter. So by catching a passage hawk and training it, and also keeping it fed and warm in these mews, I'm taking something wild for myself. Yes, but I'm also helping it survive a world that's hard on the young and the vulnerable. She whistles, and Red swoops down from the branches, bells tinkling in her wake. It's all a blur as my eyes have teared over. It's not like I don't know about the world being hard. Beatrice goes on. I've trapped passage hawks for a number of years now. Seen every one through to the spring, watched them fly off into the rest of their lives. I like to think that at least for some of those birds, I made that possible for them. She slings her fist and Red flies off again, flapping deeper into the surrounding trees. Falconry is not about trapping. Once a bird's trained, they fly free on the hunt. If the bird wants, it can take off for the hills. Why doesn't she? I ask, eyes searching the shadows for Red. Beatrice glances at me. Because falconry is about trust. She whistles and Red emerges from the branches, wings wide, circling, and then diving back to Beatrice's glove. Red knows I'm here to keep her safe and healthy. She trusts that I won't put her in danger on a hunt, and will rustle up enough prey to keep her happy. Like I said, a hawk's not a pet. She's a partner. A partner. And suddenly I'm soaring above the clouds on the wings of a dragon bird. My dragon bird. Red squawks and Beatrice feeds her another chunk of meat. I could teach you. Falconry? I asked, sounding way more hopeful and excited than I would normally allow, seeing as she sprang it on me. She nods, smiling like she knows she's got me. As a master falconer, I can train an apprentice. My eyes are practically popping out of my head. I can't officially register you, she goes on, establishing the limits of the fantasy. You're too young for the license, but we can do something unofficial. I nod, afraid to say anything because I'm not even thinking in words, but in exclamation points. That sounds like she's pretty excited. You can touch her again, she says, if you want. A smile flickers at the corners of her mouth. She turns Red's rust-striped chest towards me. This could all be a trick, some kind of foster kid plot, but then I lock eyes with Red and I decide it doesn't matter. My tip touches the smooth outer feathers, the fluff of down beneath it, then hit the breastbone. Red squeaks and promptly poops on my sneaker. Beatrice smirks. We're going to have to get you some boots. I don't even care. My fingers are already reaching again, running along the ridges of Red's feathers, imagining how it's possible to soar on such wisps. Chapter 4, Rufus. Day passes, night too, but I stay huddled inside my feathers against the rough bark of the evergreen tree. The thick thatch of its branches is like a nest, almost feels like home. And then I remember that Mother is gone. I see her shadow in the growling monster's lights and feel like there will never be a home for me again. So Rufus is the baby owl, the owlet that lost his mother to the car. A little after dawn, something snuffles in the leaves around my tree's roots. It doesn't matter. Let whatever it is pass. But it doesn't pass. The tree shivers as claws scrape the trunk. I crack open my eyes, bend my head around. I can't see the climber, but something's breathing in raspy breaths is definitely hitching its way up my tree. I shuffle away from the trunk, but get tangled in the web of branches. I slash at them with my talons, break a twig. There's a high-pitched yip, followed by a growling grumble, and snot sprays my wing that's closest to the trunk. I dare to turn my head. Great beak! It's a giant rodent covered in sharp spines. The spines bristle and flex. This animal has the most dangerous fur ever imagined. Owl piercing fur. This is the nightmare beast first used to hoot about, the revenge of the rodents, and I thought she was just making things up to scare me out of my skin. Alas, no. The gargantuan rodent opens its mouth, bares its beak-like orange teeth. I don't wait for it to strike. I burst through the thicket of branches and escape into the misty morning air. I fly, but my wings feel wet and heavy. A dizziness clouds my eyes. How long since I last ate? I sink on a cool draft of air and find the nearest branch. I'm tired, so tired. I sleep. A loud noise growls to life somewhere nearby. My eyes crack open to a gray dawn, a half day, as Mother used to call them. There's a monster in the field that stretches out in front of my tree. Its lights cut through the mist. It's bigger than the one that took Mother. It has a mouth of claws that spin and slash, cutting the tall, sweet grass that grew happily in the field. So the animal that was in the tree earlier, it sounds like a porcupine. since it had spiky skin. And this one, it has a sweet mouth of claws that spin and slash, cutting the tall, sweet grass that grew happily in the field. Sounds like a tractor. The monster's growling drowns out all other noise, but in the dim light, I see movement between the stalks. The ground undulates like the dirt itself is fleeing the monster. As it gets closer, I see that it's not dirt, but mice and voles and rats and food. So the tractor's going through the field and all the mice are running out. So the owl is excited because it's an easy catch. I swoop down, talons extended and ready to grab whatever they can. As I get closer, I can hear the heartbeats, a roar of life nearly as loud as the thrashing monster. My foot feathers sense a vole beneath me. My claws snap. I caught it! I don't bother to try to carry it someplace more private. I tear with my beak and gobble a bite. A rat squeaks as it crashes into me. And then a mouse clambers over me like I'm just a lump of feathers. I should fly away to escape being trampled by the crowd of angry vermin, but my gizzard is growling and they're everywhere and little meals on feet. I can't decide between snatching another mouthful from my vole or stretching my talons to catch a second breakfast. It's too much. I try to do both at once, bending in half to grab a bite, while reaching my claws at a passing mouse, extending my wings to the balance. A screech from above cuts through the noise. A talon pierces my shoulder. Poor little owl, the goshawk says, beak right against my ear. Cold terror silences all other sound. I swivel my beak around and slash at the goshawk's face. She screeches, digs her talons in deeper. I drop my vole, fold in my wings, and roll onto my side, slashing at her with my talons. But her grip is too strong. She flaps and screeches, lifting me up with her. I scream and slash with my feet, flap my wings, anything to get her off of me. I land a talon in her leg and she shrieks. It's enough to get her to loosen her grip. I jerk hard away from her. It's like I'm tearing my own wing off, but suddenly I'm free and I flap as hard and as fast as I can for the cover of the trees and darkness. Once on a branch, I nibble my wing with my beak, feeling over the feathers. The pain is blinding. I stretch my wing out, more pain. I nip at the hurt, but that makes it worse. I shuffle along the bark until I'm against the trunk, then huddle into it myself, fluffing my feathers and hoping that my wing stops hurting. A squirrel chitters angrily from above. I roll my head and look at her. Go away. She shrieks, flicking her tail and bristling her fur. Her squirrel nest is in the upper branches. I'm just resting, I hoot. I have no interest, or at least no energy, to bother her nest. She has the nerve to throw a nutshell at me. I pull in my feathers, lift my wings, and prepare to show her who says where a great horned owl can roost. When my wing sends lightning bolts of pain through my body, I wince. The squirrel senses an opening. She launches another nutshell and hits me right in the beak. I'm going. I stretch my wings as far as I can and glide away from the branch, landing on a stump in an open space between the trees. Never roost in the open, Mother's voice chides, but my wing won't let me fly. A crow flaps down from the canopy. Owl, he calls. Owl, owl. Soon another crow calls back. Where, where? Owl, the crow barks, hopping around the base of my stump. Leave me alone, I hoot, fluffing myself up and raising my ear tufts. Here, here, the crow shouts, and now more crows answer. Owl, owl. I have to keep this crow quiet or I'm going to have a swarm on me. I spread my wings, stuff the pain into my gizzard, and pounce on the crow. Help, help, the crow shrieks. He flaps and hops and shrieks some more, and I try to get a good grip on him, but my talons keep slipping off his oily black feathers. I'm so tired, I barely have the energy to stand. He pecks me hard in the shoulder, and the pain causes me to topple against the stump. I drop into the leaves and walk, my talons across the ground towards the nearest tree. It, too, is just a stump. Owl, the crow calls loudly, hopping along beside me. I shuffle my feet faster through the leaves, creating a thunderous noise nearly as loud as this crow and his screaming. I snap my beak at him and he flaps off up into the trees. Above, the crows are swarming, getting into a frenzy of cawing as the crow I just let escape tells them how I attacked him. Mean, mean, he caws. Bites, bites. I reach the dead tree. I dig my talons into the stump and hop and drag myself, beak over claw, up the rotting bark. Owl, owl, the crows shriek, filling the sky with their noisy cawing, their black wings like a storm swirling around me. I haul myself to the top of the ragged stump, turn my body and get a glide going. I manage to get one flap, two, and I lift slightly higher. I spot a tree with a good-sized hole in it. It's too close to the field, too open, but I can't fly any farther. Please let it be empty. I land my talons on the edge of the bark. The hole is empty and cold, but dry and small and snug. I drag myself into it, filling the space with my feathers, and hunker down into myself. My wing throbs, almost as painful as knowing that I have just been driven off 2 perches, first by an angry squirrel and then by a murder or filthy, foul-beaked crows. There has never been a worse great horned owl in the history of owldom. I am he, the absolute worst great horned owl ever. Never roost in the open, Mother's voice chides, but my wing won't let me fly. A crow flaps down from the canopy. Owl, he caws. Owl, owl. Soon another crow calls back. Where, where? Owl, the crow barks, hopping around the base of my stump. Leave me alone, I hoot, fluffing myself up and raising my ear tufts. Here, here, the crow shouts, and now more crows answer. Owl, owl. I have to keep this crow quiet or I'm going to have a swarm on me. I spread my wings, stuff the pain into my gizzard, and pounce on the crow. Help, help, the crow shrieks. He flaps and hops and shrieks some more, and I try to get a good grip on him, but my talons keep slipping off his oily black feathers. I'm so tired, I barely have the energy to stand. He pecks me hard in the shoulder, and the pain causes me to topple against the stump. I drop into the leaves and walk, my talons across the ground towards the nearest tree. It, too, is just a stump. Owl, the crow calls loudly, hopping along beside me. I shuffle my feet faster through the leaves, creating a thunderous noise nearly as loud as this crow and his screaming. I snap my beak at him and he flaps off up into the trees. Above, the crows are swarming, getting into a frenzy of cawing as the crow I just let escape tells them how I attacked him. Mean, mean, he caws. Bites, bites. I reach the dead tree. I dig my talons into the stump and hop and drag myself, beak over claw, up the rotting bark. Owl, owl, the crows shriek, filling the sky with their noisy cawing, their black wings like a storm swirling around me. I haul myself to the top of the ragged stump, turn my body and get a glide going. I manage to get one flap, two, and I lift slightly higher. I spot a tree with a good-sized hole in it. It's too close to the field, too open, but I can't fly any farther. Please let it be empty. I land my talons on the edge of the bark. The hole is empty and cold, but dry and small and snug. I drag myself into it, filling the space with my feathers, and hunker down into myself. My wing throbs, almost as painful as knowing that I have just been driven off 2 perches, first by an angry squirrel and then by a murder or filthy, foul-beaked crows. There has never been a worse great horned owl in the history of owldom. I am he, the absolute worst great horned owl ever. Chapter 4, Rufus. Day passes, night too, but I stay huddled inside my feathers against the rough bark of the evergreen tree. The thick thatch of its branches is like a nest, almost feels like home. And then I remember that Mother is gone. I see her shadow in the growling monster's lights and feel like there will never be a home for me again. So Rufus is the baby owl, the owlet that lost his mother to the car.
A little after dawn, something snuffles in the leaves around my tree's roots. It doesn't matter. Let whatever it is pass. But it doesn't pass. The tree shivers as claws scrape the trunk. I crack open my eyes, bend my head around. I can't see the climber, but something's breathing in raspy breaths is definitely hitching its way up my tree. I shuffle away from the trunk, but get tangled in the web of branches. I slash at them with my talons, break a twig. There's a high-pitched yip, followed by a growling grumble, and snot sprays my wing that's closest to the trunk. I dare to turn my head. Great beak! It's a giant rodent covered in sharp spines. The spines bristle and flex. This animal has the most dangerous fur ever imagined. Owl-piercing fur. This is the nightmare beast first used to hoot about, the revenge of the rodents, and I thought she was just making things up to scare me out of my skin. Alas, no. The gargantuan rodent opens its mouth, bares its beak-like orange teeth. I don't wait for it to strike. I burst through the thicket of branches and escape into the misty morning air. I fly, but my wings feel wet and heavy. A dizziness clouds my eyes. How long since I last ate? I sink on a cool draft of air and find the nearest branch. I'm tired, so tired. I sleep. A loud noise growls to life somewhere nearby. My eyes crack open to a gray dawn, a half day, as Mother used to call them. There's a monster in the field that stretches out in front of my tree. Its lights cut through the mist. It's bigger than the one that took Mother. It has a mouth of claws that spin and slash, cutting the tall, sweet grass that grew happily in the field. So the animal that was in the tree earlier, it sounds like a porcupine, since it had spiky skin. And this one, it has a sweet mouth of claws that spin and slash, cutting the tall, sweet grass that grew happily in the field. Sounds like a tractor. The monstrous growling drowns out all other noise, but in the dim light, I see movement between the stalks. The ground undulates like the dirt itself is fleeing the monster. As it gets closer, I see that it's not dirt, but mice and voles and rats and food. So the tractor's going through the field and all the mice are running out. So the owl's excited because it's an easy catch. I swoop down, talons extended and ready to grab whatever they can. As I get closer, I can hear the heartbeats, a roar of life nearly as loud as the thrashing monster. My foot feathers sense a vole beneath me. My claws snap. I caught it! I don't bother to try to carry it someplace more private. I tear with my beak and gobble a bite. A rat squeaks as it crashes into me. And then a mouse clambers over me like I'm just a lump of feathers. I should fly away to escape being trampled by the crowd of angry vermin, but my gizzard is growling and they're everywhere and little meals on feet. I can't decide between snatching another mouthful from my vole or stretching my talons to catch a second breakfast. It's too much. I try to do both at once, bending in half to grab a bite, while reaching my claws at a passing mouse, extending my wings to the balance. A screech from above cuts through the noise. A talon pierces my shoulder. Poor little owl, the goshawk says, beak right against my ear. Cold terror silences all other sound. I swivel my beak around and slash at the goshawk's face. She screeches, digs her talons in deeper. I drop my vole, fold in my wings, and roll onto my side, slashing at her with my talons. But her grip is too strong. She flaps and screeches, lifting me up with her. I scream and slash with my feet, flap my wings, anything to get her off of me. I land a talon in her leg and she shrieks. It's enough to get her to loosen her grip. I jerk hard away from her. It's like I'm tearing my own wing off, but suddenly I'm free and I flap as hard and as fast as I can for the cover of the trees and darkness. Once on a branch, I nibble my wing with my beak, feeling over the feathers. The pain is blinding. I stretch my wing out, more pain. I nip at the hurt, but that makes it worse. I shuffle along the bark until I'm against the trunk, then huddle into it myself, fluffing my feathers and hoping that my wing stops hurting. A squirrel chitters angrily from above. I roll my head and look at her. Go away. She shrieks, flicking her tail and bristling her fur. Her squirrel nest is in the upper branches. I'm just resting, I hoot. I have no interest, or at least no energy, to bother her nest. She has the nerve to throw a nutshell at me. I pull in my feathers, lift my wings, and prepare to show her who says where a great horned owl can roost. When my wing sends lightning bolts of pain through my body, I wince. The squirrel senses an opening. She launches another nutshell and hits me right in the beak. I'm going. I stretch my wings as far as I can and glide away from the branch, landing on a stump in an open space between the trees. Never roost in the open, Mother's voice chides, but my wing won't let me fly. A crow flaps down from the canopy. Owl, he calls. Owl, owl. Soon another crow calls back. Where, where? Owl, the crow barks, hopping around the base of my stump. Leave me alone, I hoot, fluffing myself up and raising my ear tufts. Here, here, the crow shouts, and now more crows answer. Owl, owl. I have to keep this crow quiet or I'm going to have a swarm on me. I spread my wings, stuff the pain into my gizzard, and pounce on the crow. Help, help, the crow shrieks. He flaps and hops and shrieks some more, and I try to get a good grip on him, but my talons keep slipping off his oily black feathers. I'm so tired I barely have the energy to stand. He pecks me hard in the shoulder, and the pain causes me to topple against the stump. I drop into the leaves and walk, my talons across the ground towards the nearest tree. It, too, is just a stump. Owl, the crow calls loudly, hopping along beside me. I shuffle my feet faster through the leaves, creating a thunderous noise nearly as loud as this crow and his screaming. I snap my beak at him and he flaps off up into the trees. Above, the crows are swarming, getting into a frenzy of cawing as the crow I just let escape tells them how I attacked him. Mean, mean, he caws. Bites, bites. I reach the dead tree. I dig my talons into the stump and hop and drag myself, beak over claw, up the rotting bark. Owl, owl, the crows shriek, filling the sky with their noisy cawing, their black wings like a storm swirling around me. I haul myself to the top of the ragged stump, turn my body and get a glide going. I manage to get one flap, two, and I lift slightly higher. I spot a tree with a good-sized hole in it. It's too close to the field, too open, but I can't fly any farther. Please let it be empty. I land my talons on the edge of the bark. The hole is empty and cold, but dry and small and snug. I drag myself into it, filling the space with my feathers, and hunker down into myself. My wing throbs, almost as painful as knowing that I have just been driven off 2 perches, first by an angry squirrel and then by a murder or filthy, foul-beaked crows. There has never been a worse great horned owl in the history of owldom. I am he, the absolute worst great horned owl ever. Chapter 5, Reenie. I wake up Monday morning with the falconer's apprentice under my head on the pillow. It's all about hawks and falcons and how to care for them and train them for use in falconry. So Falconer's Apprentice must be a book. It's a book. Normally, these kinds of books bore me to death, but I need to know this stuff for the passage hawk I'm going to catch. To be honest, I couldn't put this book full of statistics and facts and words like flying weight and tidbits and creans down, which is why I have a crease in my cheek from my pillow buddy. I slam off the alarm clock and drag myself out of bed. Monday is orientation at my new school. Beatrice and I listen to classical music as we drive past thick forest broken by fields of weeds, some with a home plopped in them. And within 10 minutes, we turn onto the state highway, entering the crowded store and apartment block part of the town. We're not talking city. It's 2 blocks of 3-story, 3-story, 100-year-old buildings, and an inn that was last popular when my great-grandmother was born. Branford is the refuge for hipsters who work in Rutland. That's how kids at my old school talked about it. We park in front of this giant brick building into which crowds of little kids clutching parents' hands are pouring. Are we in the right place? I ask, hugging my backpack to my chest. In it, I had put the falconry book. It's my good luck charm. This school is grades K through 6, Beatrice says. Orientation is for kindergartners and new students. She leads me into the cavernous lobby where a woman with a name tag and a plastered-on smile points us down one of the long hallways. Welcome to Otter Creek Elementary, she says, all sing-song and happy. It's making me suspicious how happy she's pretending to be. We find the 6th grade orientation classroom, and Beatrice stops at the door. You coming, I ask? You're on your own from here. I freeze, look around. There are only a few other kids. Beatrice is still waiting in the doorway. It's a half a day, she says. I'll be back at noon. I nod. I walk to the closest desk. I sit. We play a name game, some get-to-know-you activities. You're supposed to give your name, where you came from and why you moved, and your favorite things about Old Town. Most of the others have normal stories, divorce, mom's new job, to be closer to grandpa, easy stories. My story has never been easy. This is the first time the state has officially gotten involved, like with courts and lawyers and stuff, but it's not the first time Mom and I have had to live apart. The first time she went away to get help, it was like I'd been torn in two. I stayed in the junk room at Graham's house all winter. By spring, Mom was back and we found our own place to live. The second time she had to leave, we had lost that apartment and were already living at Graham's house, so it felt more like Mom went on a long vacation without me. By the third time, I'd learned how to get by without a parent. Even when she's home, the sadness can take her from me. It's just easier to not expect anything from anyone, to take care of myself. When the teacher gets to me, I don't feel like explaining, so I make something up. I'm Maureen Esperance. I'm from Burlington. I like boating on the lake. I took a school trip to Burlington once. All I wanted that day was to be one of those people out boating on the lake. The teacher checks her sheet. Lovely, she sputters. Thank you, Maureen. We then have to talk about where we live here in Branford and something we're excited about in our new home. This is easy. When she comes to me, I describe the old farmhouse in the woods on the other side of Route 7. My aunt is a falconer, and she has a real red-tailed hawk. The other kids stare at me. How interesting, the teacher exclaims. The class moves on to talking about schedules, where stuff is in the school building, rotating days, and moving from class to class. Then we're given a tour, which ends outside of the school's ginormous playground. We're told to go play. The place is so big, the 5 of us new kids just kind of hang out by this wooden pavilion, taking it all in. Isn't falconry like from olden days, one girl says. People still do it, I say. But it's hunting, right? Yeah, I guess. I'm not really focused on the hunting part. How can anyone focus on the hunting part when I mentioned a real live red-tailed hawk? Hunting is mean, this girl, Peyton, I think, crosses her arms. Are you a vegetarian, I ask. No. Then somebody's hunting your meat for you, so I guess you're mean, just once removed. The girl's face curls into a scowl. That's not very nice. The other girls look at me like I've called Peyton a mud-sucking pig. When she slinks away, they follow her towards the swing. It's not like I wanted to be friends with them anyway. I mean, I'm here for a couple weeks, a month maybe. I hunt. The only boy in the group sits at the table under the pavilion. He's the one who moved because his parents got divorced. He's wearing a camouflage shirt and Carhartts with grubby sneakers. I think his name is Jackson. I don't, I say, but the hawk is pretty cool. I've seen one up close once, he said. My dad's game warden back in St. Johnsbury. He brought home a hawk who'd been hit by a car. He seems a little too laid back about something as egg-cracking awesome as having a hawk in his house. And then he hitches up a corner of his mouth, half smiles, and says, I held its wing while my dad examined it. And I see that he gets it, that he knows. I want to grab him by the shoulders and have him tell me what kind of hawk and hit where and did he get to have its perch on his glove, basically everything about the hawk. I want to tell him everything I've learned about hawks, to scream with him about how amazing it is just to be near a hawk. But the buzz crackles. Dangerous. I know better than to let my feelings out. I decide not to get into it. Cool, I say. He nods. Yeah. And we sit there in the shade, not talking, until the bell rings, and we all file back into the classroom. See you tomorrow, he says to me as we grab our stuff to go. I glance up at him through a frizz of hair, nod a little, and shuffle out the door. Beatrice takes me back to work with her. She's a vet technician, which means she gets to pet a lot of animals from what I can tell. I hang out in the back of the office with the dogs and the cats left for medical stuff and boarding. They all kind of look how I feel, like they're full of questions and a little lost. It's weird how Jackson saying he'd see me tomorrow kind of deflated me. Shouldn't a person saying they'd see you tomorrow, speaking to you at all in a friendly way, make you feel good? But he was being friendly to the half-girl I pretended to be, the quiet one who enjoys sailing on lakes and has never had to beg a gas station attendant for an extra hot dog. That's who he wants to see tomorrow. Not like this should surprise me. No one looks at the whole me and sticks around. Mom tried to do a fancy friend's birthday party for me in kindergarten at one of our old apartments. One of the kids' moms called social services after finding bugs swarming some dirty dishes in our kitchen sink. That ordeal was the first time I remember Mom locking herself in the bathroom for a night. Next day at school, no one sat with me at lunch. Cooties, I heard whispered as I passed. I was about ready to lock myself in a bathroom stall, but instead I smiled. Teeth bared and blinding white, I walked right past that whisper and every other one I'd heard since. Friends are dangerous, but no one can hurt you if you don't let them see you, if they only see the smile. One of the dogs whimpers this pathetic little yowl. I drag a chair over to his crate, pull out the hawk book, and read him the biological facts of the red-tailed hawk. Crop, gizzard, mantle, crown, primary feathers, secondary feathers. The dog quits yowling and starts snuffling at my neck. I pet his wet nose. He licks my fingers like he's hungry. I'm definitely getting hungry. Beatrice slides open a pocket door and sighs. I think we're done here. I hop down and slip the book into my bag. Red's probably getting hungry. Beatrice's eyebrows rise slowly. Oh? Definitely, I say. Her gizzard's growling. She snorts a little laugh. I've never heard a gizzard growl. They do, I say with authority. Then I guess we need to get a move on dinner. When we get home, I start poking through the pantry. When I lived with Mom, even Graham some nights, if I'm hungry, it's up to me to figure out something to eat. On Beatrice's shelves, I see cans of beans and jars with vegetables floating in them. What am I supposed to do with these? The aunt appears like a ghost behind me. Do you eat soup? I shrug. Soup it is. She scoops up 2 cans and 3 jars. An hour later, she serves soup. It's not bad. How was school, she asked me. Fine. I try to avoid all personal questions as a matter of policy. Meet any nice kids? For a hot second, I think about Jackson, but the buzz warns dangerous. A few, I say. This is the kind of vague response that stops adults from further prying. It works like magic. The aunt doesn't ask another question. I feel only a little bad about it. We eat in silence. I check somewhere ticks. A clock somewhere ticks. A car drives by. A bug outside starts grinding its wings. I'm done, I say, standing. I put my bowl in the sink. Can you start teaching me about Red now? Beatrice's eyebrows crimp like she's calculating something, but then she's up and tugging on her boots. She shows me how to clean the aviary, how to cut up the dead mice, gross, and how to clean the leather gloves. Then she hands me a new glove, kid size and everything. Thought you might need this, she says. It's called a gauntlet. I slide it over my fingers. It's thick and heavy. It must have cost a fortune. It's mine. I probably should have talked more at dinner. Thank you, I say finally. She smiles and nods in response, then calls Red down from a nearby tree. The hawk swoops and lands on Beatrice's glove, snaps up the tidbit of meat from her fingers. Then Beatrice turns to me. Lift your arm, straight and strong. I lift it, try to be strong. Beatrice moves my wrist into position, holds my glove against Red's legs, and then it happens. Red steps onto my glove. She's feather light, but the weight of her, not the pound's weight, but the power she gives off, nearly sends me sprawling. It only lasts a moment. Red realizes pretty quick I'm not Beatrice and flaps off to a perch. But that moment, I don't think I've ever felt so special. The sun has made the trees all golden, and I have that feeling they used to sell packaged cookie dough, like I've come home. I let myself soak it in for one whole second before ripping the feeling off like a Band-Aid. I can't be sucked into this by this. This whole life is a placeholder. I have to remember that. No matter how nice, no matter if the hawk lets me hold her, this home is not mine. Beatrice wakes me up early so I can make the bus. I must look as happy about school as I feel, which is not, because she offers me a gift. This weekend, she says, we'll start this weekend. I pause mid-bite of my cereal. Really? I say, mouth dripping milk. Do you need a napkin? I wipe my face on my arm. We can start trying to catch my, passage hawk this weekend. She smiles. Season's open September 1st. My heart revs right up to full throttle. What do I need to do to get ready? Now Beatrice is actually laughing at me. Nothing, she says. I have everything we need. So I just have to wait? Falconry is 80% waiting. I jam my spoon back into the bowl. I know, I say. I've been reading. I got barely 6 hours of sleep because I was up so late reading the new falconry book I found in the living room alongside the apprentice manual. I have to keep switching between the two just to fill in all the stuff I am completely clueless about. There isn't enough time in the day to learn everything I want to know about hawks. I'll pick you up after school, she says, standing to put her bowl in the sink. I can take the bus. I don't need a special treatment. You have visitation, she says. Oh. All the excitement drains out of me like someone pulled the plug in a bathtub. What kind of terrible kid am I that I am more excited to catch a wild bird than I am to see my mother? We can feed Red when he gets back. Beatrice continues shuffling through her morning routine as she talks. It's cool that she's not all over me trying to make me feel good about things that weren't nothing to feel good about. Graham would be barking at me to stop frowning, that I'm lucky to have a mom at all, and can I show some gratitude for everything I've got by doing a load or two of laundry? Okay, I say, and slurp the last of my milk. School is school. In the cafeteria, I grab lunch and take my tray to a table in the corner. I brought the paperback novel from home for company and started to read. Sam has stolen a baby peregrine falcon from its nest. I'm half horrified and half jealous. Can I sit here? A girl with straw-colored hair and green-brown eyes hovered over the seat opposite me. Whatever, I say, and keep reading. I get another paragraph in. Sam's calling his falcon frightful before the girl interrupts me. Are you new here? I've never seen you before. My name's Jamie Hendricks. I'm reading, I say without looking up. Oh, Jamie says. She eats her sandwich from a fancy insulated lunchbox with her name embroidered on it. She probably lives in a mansion with a golden retriever and parents who tuck her into lullaby every night. I scoop the last of my stew into my mouth, shove my book into my pocket, and get up to dump my tray. I'll see you in class, she says. Her words are like hooks catching me before I can escape. The girl does not take a hint. Yeah, I say, and run out the door to the playground. I find a bush near the school wall and sneak behind it. I'm only half surprised to find that Jackson's already shoved himself back there. He's using a pen to scratch a piece of wood. Hey, he says, not even looking up. Hey, I echo, then, what you doing? Escapes before I can stop my mouth. I whittle, he says, but you can't bring knives to school. Yeah, I say, though I've never really thought about it. Pen does an okay job, he continues, if the wood is soft. He pulls out some plastic knives. These help with the bigger cuts. I pick up a knife from the I think that means cafeteria. He shrugs, half smiling. Use what you find. He pokes around under the bush and pulls out another hunk of wood. He holds it out to me. I take it. I fish a pen from a pocket and begin scratching at the wood. It makes a small gouge. I try the knife, a long chip peels off, and that's how we spend the whole of recess, scratching the wood, alone, together. Jackson's piece looks like a lizard. Mine's going to be a hawk. After school, Beatrice drives me down to Rutland. She listens to public radio, some talk show about a tax bill in the legislature, and I scratch at my wood. It's not good, but it does look kind of like a bird. When we get to visitation, I hand the wood to my mom. I made this, I say. She takes it in her fingers like I've just handed her a bomb. Her eyes tear up and her lips tremble. I'm sorry, I say. I know it's awful. It's supposed to be a hawk, but she wipes her hands over her face and fakes smiles back. I love it, Reens. It's beautiful. Nothing I do is right. Even my gifts make people cry. Do you have the sparkle cards? I ask, trying to move on. And then Mom is crying even harder, mumbling that she forgets everything. How could she be so stupid? I tell her it's nothing, not to worry, because it is nothing. It has to be nothing, even though a tiny voice inside asks, how could she forget? But I crush that voice and grab a deck of cards from the shelf like they're a life raft. We play a bunch of games of hearts. I let her win every hand. In math, on Wednesday, the teacher has us turn our desk around to work in pairs. I discover Jackson behind me. Hey, I say. Hey. He pulls his pen and wood out from the desk as though the whittling and not the worksheet is what's been signed. But then I notice he's already finished the worksheet. You can copy, he says, not looking up. I don't do that, I say. He smiles. Good. I hunch over my paper. He hunches over his wood. The briefest glance at my school file would reveal that I am not a great student, particularly in the math department. This algebra-ish. When I get stuck on the second problem, Jackson, without appearing to even look up from his whittling, says, you forgot to subtract the 6 from the other side. I don't need help, I snapped. Jackson hunches further down and keeps whittling. I feel a little bad, but also a little freaked out. Do I look like I'm having that much trouble with this worksheet? And then it sinks in. I have no idea what 6 he's been talking about. What 6? I finally allow myself to blurt. Jackson puts aside his pen and wood. Here, he says, pointing farther up on my paper, you just left this part out. It takes a second, but I see it. That rat of a 6 was hiding all the way over on the other side of the equation. This odd calm comes over me as I get to x equals 2. Thanks, Jackson nods. Sure. At lunch, I scarf down my food before anyone can ask to sit with me. I rush outside and find Jackson behind the same bush. My whole body kind of sighs with relief as I sink down next to him. Hey, he says, already whittling. Hey, I pull out my book and read. After school, Beatrice and I work on this bal chatri trap. It's a safe trap that won't hurt the bird, Beatrice promises. It looks like an upside-down colander with a mouse stuck under it, and it's covered with wispy little strings. The hawk's feet get tangled in the loops of strings when it flies down to get the mouse in the trap. But nothing else will happen. The trap has weights around its edges so the hawk will be grounded once its feet are caught. Even the mouse will be okay because it's protected by the wire mesh. Beatrice has an old trap that we're fixing. We're using new wire to patch some holes in the mesh, and then we have to add more weights. Beatrice said that the last time she used it, the hawk was able to fly off with the trap. which is how the mesh got kind of beat up. And then we have to make all the loops out of those tiny little strings to tie into the trap. I need a break, Beatrice says, putting down the roll of fishing line. I shake my head, trying to untangle my fingers from a failed attempt at a knot. I'll keep working. You need a break, she says, pointing at the deep red dents in my fingers from the pressure of the plastic string. I shrug. If we take a break, the trap might not be finished in time, and then I'll be a whole other week before we can start with my quest for the passage hawk. Red needs a walk, she says, and heads out back. I sigh, drop my failed loop, tie on the work boots Beatrice found for me. She hit a thrift store on her lunch break and came back with treasure, and follow. She's already gone into the aviary. I find her with Red on her fist, standing in front of the little table in the tiny room between the doors leading into Red's open flight space. She holds her fist near the weird contraption on the table. It looks like a scale, except it has a perch instead of a flat plate on top. She's good, Beatrice says, marking something in a small notebook on the tabletop. I know what she's doing from all the falconry books I've read. Every bird has its flying weight, which the falconer needs to keep the bird apt to fly it. If the hawk is too heavy, it might not hunt. Too light, it isn't getting enough food or might be sick. Falconers figure out what the flying weight of their bird is and try to keep them in that condition. But still, it's a little creepy, weighing an animal. Isn't it kind of cruel, I suggest, to keep Red hungry? Beatrice arches an eyebrow at me. Keeping her motivated by the food is a part of it. But it's not starvation. Think of Red as an athlete. I'm helping her to stay in top form. She hands me my gauntlet as she steps out of the tight room and into the golden afternoon. She throws Red off the fist and Hawk disappears, the jingle of her bells the only evidence of her presence. You remember that the gauntlet is her gloves. Give me your left arm, Beatrice says, and I lift it. She grabs it and curls my gloved fingers into a fist. Hold still. Is she really? Now whistle, Beatrice says, shoving a piece of meat into the space between the leather of the thumb and the index finger of my gauntlet. I do, and Red comes diving down from the branches, her bells warning of her approach. I turn my head and see her just as she swoops up and alights on my glove. She's never flown to me before. Red devours the morsel, then stands peaceful. You have to hold these between your finger and ring finger, Beatrice says, tugging the two little leather strips that hang from Red's legs and jamming them into my hand. They're called jesses, and they'll keep her from flying off. I nod, my voice stolen by the magnificent creature perched on my arm. She flew to me. My heart pounds. My right hand tightens into a fist, nails digging into my palm to help keep my left arm still as a branch for Red. You can walk, Beatrice says, smirking like I'm being a freak. But it's a nice smile, so I don't say anything snarky. Plus, I'm holding a hawk, and that is so freaking cool that every rotten thought just poofs right out of my brain. I dare to step forward. Red glances past my head, but stays standing. I attempt to walk. Come on, Beatrice says, and strolls down the path into the woods. I follow, rolling my feet over the rocks and roots to keep from jostling Red as we make our way slowly through the sun-dappled shade. When we reach a clearing, Beatrice stops. Now cast her off your glove. She holds her arm straight out and whips it forward. Hold on to the jesses until the very last moment. Cast her, I say. You mean throw her? Birds of prey only fly to eat. They spend most of their waking hours sitting around watching for prey. So as a falconer, you have to cheat a little. Just throw her into the sky. I whip my arm just as I've seen Beatrice do, releasing the jesses just as I would a baseball. Red flies off. The jingling sound of her bells tells of her travel into the tangle of branches. Imagine when it's not Beatrice's bird, but my passage hawk flying towards me. Imagine pulling the wild beauty from the air and making it mine. Then it won't matter that I'm living in a temporary home with a temporary family. going to a temporary school, meeting temporary friends. I'll have one real thing for myself, a dragon bird to soar with, something so majestic and powerful, even I can't weigh it down. Which is why it's impossible to be patient about this whole process. It's getting dark, I say. Shouldn't we get back? Beatrice gives me a once-over. We'll have the trap ready in time, she says. Does this lady read minds? Oh, yeah, I say. Sure, I'm not worried. I just don't want to be out late. For Red. Beatrice snorts air through her nostrils. For Red, she whistles, and Red flies back to her fist. At recess Thursday, Jackson holds out a pen to me. It's a regular pen, but the nib and conical cover over it are metal. A pin pricks inside my gut, and this warm, fuzzy feeling burbles up. He thought of me. He thought to bring me a pen. Thanks, I whisper, taking it gingerly between my fingers. He nods, gives a cleaner scrape. Yeah? I put down my falconry book and picked up a hunk of wood. Yup. He runs his pen, same kind, over the wood in his hand and peels off a curling chip. Huh. A pair of sneakers kicks through the leaves near our bush. Maureen? Oh, great. Maureen, it's Jamie. From lunch the other day? She shoves her way through the branches that protect us. Oh, hi, Jackson. Right? Jackson flips his face up. Want to sit? He scrapes a little line across his wood with the pen. Okay. Jamie smiles like she just won the lottery and squeezes down between the roots. There really isn't room for three back here. She kind of stares at us while Jackson and I scrape. Jamie wiggles her sneakers. My two closest friends moved away over the summer. She picks at the bark of the bush. How weird is that? Both your friends moving to in the same summer. All my friends are back in St. Johnsbury, Jackson says. I don't say anything. I don't really do friends. I love crafts, Jamie says. You guys sculpting? Whittling, I correct. Same thing, Jackson says. He digs under the bush and finds another piece of wood. Want to try? And he pulls another pen from his pocket, the same kind he gave me. Wow, thanks, says Jamie. Sure, says Jackson, and they smile at each other. So I guess it wasn't so special for him to bring me a pen. I guess this is just what he does. I want to throw the pen back at him, but I don't. I jam the pen into my wood, cut out a hunk. I'm going to make another hawk. A lone flyer. After school, I have visitation, and the whole way there, I have trouble working up the energy to act happy for Mom. But then I see her through the window, and she flashes me a smile. A real smile. Mom's smile is the kind that catches on. My lips can't help but curl up at the edges. I ordered us hot chocolate, she says as I sit down. Extra whipped cream, I asked, with warm already spreading inside me. Is there any other way to drink it? As we sip our hot chocolates, she tells me about this lady at the treatment center who steals potatoes from the kitchen and hides them all over. It's a real mom story, complete with silly words she made up and impressions. No one tells a better story than Mom. The surprise was dumping a whole bag's worth of tater tots out of my sneakers, she says. We both laugh, and it's like the sadness is nothing but a bad dream we got stuck in. But it's always like this, isn't it? All my best times are with Mom until the sadness takes her away. Are we going to move back in with Graham, I dare to ask. Mom's smile flickers. You know Graham, she says, and then imitates Graham's scratchy voice. Phil doesn't mean any of it. What's the big deal? She slurps her cocoa. So no, we're not going back there. Oh, I say. Phil has always been a bum, but that never kept us from crashing there before. He didn't mean to hit me with the plate, I remind her, because if we can't live with Graham, where are we going to live? It doesn't matter if he meant it, Reens. Her smile is gone. Randy said we can't go back. So this is what Beatrice was dancing around last Sunday, her explanation for the gift of clothes. Mom finishes her drink. Want to play hearts? She pulls out a new deck of cards. Not the sparkle deck, but not our cards. You forgot again? The words slip out, the sneaks. The sparkle deck is missing a 10 and 2 jacks, she says. So I tossed it. I'm sorry. Whatever, I say with my own smile going back into hiding. I pick up the hand she's dealt and leave the rest of my cocoa in the cup. Friday at lunch, I see Jamie and Jackson already sitting together. I could go over, sit, act all interested in whatever is Jamie's gushing about. I could be a gusher, but the buzz taps against my gut. Dangerous. I sit somewhere else. Friday afternoon, Beatrice and I test the trap. Red watches us with a concerned eye from her perch. The mouse scrambles around in the cage but can't escape. Because we added a double mesh, the mouse can't gnaw out the plastic strips. It's perfect. I scarf my dinner as if that will make the hours pass faster. We're probably not going to catch anything, Beatrice warns, waving the hand in front of my eyes, which stare out into the dark. I know, I say, though the course of this possibility seems so infinitesimally small as to be meaningless. Our trap is amazing. It will definitely catch a passage hawk tomorrow morning. I am up with the sun. Beatrice comes downstairs to find me having already made her coffee. When did you get up? She asked. Early, I say, practically vibrating with excitement. Can we go now? Red squawks from her aviary. Why don't you go feed Red and I'll feed myself? I take a defrosted mouse from the fridge, drop it into a bath of hot water, and wait for it to warm up. Then drop it, wet and steamy, into Red's dish and carry it outside. It rained last night and the grass sends up sprays of rainbows in the early sunlight with my every step. It's an omen. I am going to catch a passage hawk.